morning, Shoreline.
Hey!
My name's Graham Cowgill, one of the pastors here, and this is Kim Thornell.
Me?
Kim owns and runs and operates the Hot Mess Salon in the church.
Yes.
How long have you been doing that?
In the church, I think over 2 years now.
And
Yeah.
Kim keeps trying to get me into the salon, and I say, that's stupid because I'm bald. You can't tell it right now because I'm 6'8". Check
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah, I'll post pictures next time you're in the salon.
Yeah. So I don't have hair coverage. Actually, I went to a barber shop one time, and this lady goes, hey, we have some product that could help with your condition. And I was like, you know what?
Ooh.
Don't call it a condition. First
Yeah,
of all.
the
And second of
disease.
all, yeah, don't try to sell me on something. All right, that doesn't matter.
I think we have something that might help you today.
I agree. We have a product that has not been tested on anybody until today. We're going to play a game that we haven't come up with a name for. So in the comments, you come up with a name for it. But it's called, unofficially, Smash an Egg on Your Face. Here's how the
Face?
game works. You know, you get to take creative liberties, face or head. We have here a series of true or false questions that we do not know the answers to.
He
We have
cheated.
the answers here covered. I'm going to ask a true or false question. If one of us gets the answer incorrect, we are then going to take an egg out of this carton, which Bradley, our facilities guy, have hard-boiled
You have
half
to
of these.
close your eyes and grab.
Yeah, exactly. So he put them in randomly, so we don't know. Smash one on your face or head, and then if you get two smashed on your face that are gooey, you lose, and you can never come back to church again.
Do we lose a prize?
That's the
Oh,
yeah, the health
Oh,
of your
it's
soul.
just-
Yeah,
oh.
and eternal separation.
So this is
from
a
God.
serious game. I
Big
think
deal.
he cheated.
Yeah,
Just
I
saying.
think he's going to honor this. Okay, you ready for question number one? Cyclones spin in a clockwise direction in the southern hemisphere. True or false?
I'm going to go with true. I don't know.
It feels like there's no way wind would blow the same way every time.
But it's a cyclone.
You're a cyclone. Got him.
Dun, dun,
I'm
dun,
going to
dun,
say
dun, dun.
false. Please, God.
Da-da-da-da.
Oh, my gosh. It's true? That doesn't even make sense.
Will this start soon?
Okay, here we go.
Oh, gosh.
Wait, what's happening? No. I lost.
We both said it.
You said true? You said true, you stooge.
Oh, thank you.
You can smash one if you want. Oh my gosh.
You
Glasses
saved me.
off.
Saved me.
You just got to go for it, right?
Yeah, just woo.
Yeah!
Oh, it's
Hard-boiled.
boiled.
Nailed. Okay, next one. Goldfish only have a memory of 3 seconds.
True.
You know what? I'm going to say true also. Oh my gosh, it's false. I thought I remember hearing that in school. It's like Roy G. Biv.
Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh.
1, 2, 3.
Oh!
Oh, wear it! Kim, oh, I'm so sorry. That looks tough. Double hard-boiled for Graham.
All right, got the first
And
one out the way.
honestly, that just comes down to biblical discernment.
This is the product we were talking about.
Okay.
So great for your locks.
Yep. You look great, Kim. I would have gone face. Next one is an octopus has 5 hearts. True or false?
They have 8 legs.
I'll tell you what. I did an octopus ministry one time, and when they have to accept Christ into their hearts,
5
it took
times.
4 weeks. Yeah.
5 times.
I'm going to say false.
True. Why not?
Because you've cheated. It's false. It has 3. I knew it because of the ministry. That's why it pays to do ministry, guys. Get out there and start ministering to a...
Yay!
You went too fast.
I did face head.
Okay,
That's
next one. Darth Vader famously says the line, Luke, I am your father, in The Empire Strikes Back.
You know this is a big thing right now, huh?
What are you saying?
I'm going to say, in the last clip I saw of it, false, but I've seen it before and it was true.
You can't choose
I know.
both.
I'm
Choose
telling
one,
you,
Kim.
it's a complicated
Such
one.
a woman answer. Choose one of them.
False. Look
I'm
his face. Look his
I'm going
face.
to say false. I think I saw a meme on this. Oh, wear it. Double false. Hey, we're closing down, and you're the only one so far who's embarrassed yourself. Next,
Woo!
Nicolas Cage and Michael Jackson both married the same woman. I'm just self-filtered about 18 jokes. You know, I heard that Nicolas Cage's marriage didn't go well. He was gone in 60 seconds.
Oh.
So you probably...
So let's
okay,
say
what are you
false.
saying? False or true?
False.
I'm going to say true. 13. Oh, it is true. You are not good at this.
I am good at this.
Did Bradley even? Okay, here we go. Japan and Russia did not sign a peace treaty after World War II, so they are technically still at war. Boy, I got dark fast. You know what? I'm going to say true.
I'm going to
just
say
because
false.
I'm in favor
In
of
Jesus'
as much
name.
war as possible. Just kidding. 14? True. What did I say? You said true. I said true. You said false.
You rigged this.
Hey, can you pick one that's funny?
I don't
Quit
know
hard
which
boiling
one.
your head. Oh my! How much time do we have, Jonah? We have 1 minute. I'll tell you what. You grab one, I grab one for the final round.
For Eric.
For Eric. We look at each other. This one's going right between the eyes. Oh, okay. 1,
You're taller.
2, 3. You knew it!
It's good for your hair.
Well, guys, we are so glad that you joined us today for the Shoreline Morning Show. We have an awesome day planned for you, so stick around and enjoy the message.
Bye.
Dang it, Kim.
Happy Sunday. I'm Molly. Welcome to Shoreline Online. We're so glad you're here. It's Vision Month, and our vision is to bring Jesus and his church to the front and center of everyday life. During Vision Month, we share who we are and what we value.
This video is going to end with about like 3 seconds left. Hey, we're not muted. We're not muted.
Here we go now. Here we go now.
Happy Sunday. I'm Molly. Welcome to Shoreline Online. We're so glad you're here. It's Vision Month, and our vision is to bring Jesus and his church to the front and center of everyday life. During Vision Month, we share who we are and what we value. Just a couple of things before we get started. I want to encourage you to let us know where you're joining us from and who you're watching today's service with. And if you're new around here or curious about your next step, go ahead and fill out the Connect card linked right there in the chat. We believe everyone has a next step, not just new people. Once you fill that out, a team member will reach out to connect with you. Like I said, it's Vision Month, and this week is all about community. True community allows us to grow ourselves, our friendships, and experience even greater belonging. We hope you feel like you belong here, because you do. Before today's message, we're going into a time of worship with an original song from Shoreline Worship. Enjoy.
Grateful. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Shoreline Church. Those of you watching from Crab Island, AJ's, as well as our online campus, I'd like to welcome you this morning, as well as welcome my wife, Darlene.
Hi.
I think this is the first time that we've talked in this format before.
So
I'm glad that you're here with me this morning. And
Thanks. It's
we
good to
got to
be here.
spend the last month on vacation for celebrating our anniversary.
We had a staycation. It was a lot of fun.
It was very good, very fun, and or very fun, a lot of fun. That's
lot of
better.
fun.
Yeah. I talked about this last week, just how much things have changed in a month.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't have to remind anybody how challenging it's been the last 5 months, and for some people, brutal. You know, maybe financially or mentally, socially. Maybe your relationships are suffering, and so we're all kind of trying to pick up the pieces and move forward the best we can, trying to navigate what's going on because things are so different now. I mean, in fact, don't you miss the good old days? Who misses the good old days?
Good old days.
You know, January and February.
2019.
Yeah, 2019, the good old days when you could travel
Yeah.
and make plans and go places and go to school, send your kids to school and play sports and go to church. Man, things have changed, haven't they? You know, I've heard so many times that I hear it all the time. We're living in unprecedented times.
Yeah.
This is an unprecedented season. I would give anything for some precedented. I mean, anything precedented. I don't want any more unprecedented. Could somebody go out and get me a little precedent? Because I'm tired of it. You know, and it just seems like people are tense. People are unsure. People are easily agitated. I know I can be agitated. I know one of our friends works in a restaurant. She says this is the worst season that she's ever seen with customers just being, you know, tense
Really
and
difficult.
stuff. Yeah. And people are terrified. They're lacking confidence in the future, lacking direction. You hear, I mean, when you get on social media, people are questioning like the authenticity of, is this a conspiracy? Is there somebody behind this? Who can we trust? You know, which news agency is telling us the truth? And I think because of that, many people just have a deep sense of disconnectedness, you know, they just
Yeah.
feel hopeless. And I think one of the toughest ones that I've heard it's been very common in the last 5 months, has been this feeling of isolation. You know, and isolation can be very destructive. Isolation can cause you to feel hopeless, cause you to feel alone. It can cause you to slip back into destructive habits that you maybe got rid of at
Yeah.
one point, or bad rhythms. And so a lot of people, I think, in this season would kind of just say, you know, it's just not, life is different than the way I thought it was going to be. It's just not turning out the way I thought it was going to turn out. Things just don't feel right. There's like a heaviness, an uneasiness. Have you noticed that?
Oh yeah, and I know too that the stats are showing that mental health issues are just way on the
Through the
rise,
roof,
and
yeah.
I think that people are just experiencing isolation in so many different ways that I don't even know that everybody can even relate to each other.
Yeah.
Because you've got people that maybe they were working in an office and they loved it. They loved to just go in and rub shoulders with the people that they work with, and now they're having to work from home, and that's like really, it's difficult. Sometimes it's not motivating, you know. I know our kids who are some of them are younger adults. They work in the service industry, and they don't know from week to week, am I going to be working or am I going to be at home for a
Yeah,
while? Am
that's
I going to
right.
get to go back to work or what? You know, it's just changing constantly. Also thinking about those who have homeschooled
Yeah.
for a while, you know, like you get to homeschool and it's really exciting.
Homeschool.
Yeah. It's almost like
Homeschooled.
you guys, it's like an extended spring break into summer, but now things could be going back. And if they are, it's really strange the way they're handling everything.
Yeah.
You know, that people are feeling really uncertain. Another thing is a lot of people didn't get to experience their graduation or
Yeah.
get to go to prom. And that's such an important time in a high schooler's life where they're feeling like they're getting to celebrate this long season that they've worked really hard for. And that can be really, really difficult.
Yeah.
The other thing is, this probably seems really trivial, but if you didn't notice, I got my hair cut.
Looks good.
It's shorter. And the color is great as well. Don't you think?
I
Did
do.
you notice a difference?
Oh,
for
big
sure.
time. Yeah.
I know. You're always pointing at my gray hair like,
No,
I
I
need to
don't.
get that
I don't
done.
do that.
But I finally, for the first time, got to go to the salon yesterday. And, you know, it's a special time for me because I get to have conversation with my hairdresser, and she loves God. I get to hear all the cool things that are going on in her life, and I get to share with her. And,
Yeah.
you know, like, I miss that. It's
Yeah.
just a weird time.
Or maybe you're a guy. Well, it doesn't have to be guy. I don't want to say that, but for sports is important for a lot of
Yeah.
people. Maybe playing sports, watching sports, whatever it is. I mean, I know a lot of people that play softball in the spring and that got canceled and they didn't get to play that, or basketball, or maybe you're in high school or college and you didn't get to finish out your sports season. Or for me, it's watching sports. I love to watch sports. And the idea that there might not be college football in the fall, I don't know if I could take it again.
It's going to be hard, which means
I
it's
don't
going to
know
be
if I
hard
could
for the
do
rest
that.
of us in the household.
But here's the problem. See, just like anything, we humans, we are extremely adaptable. I mean, we know how to adapt, and even to isolation. So here's what happens: as the quarantines lift, you may find yourself not wanting to return to what used to be normal because you're adapting. And so there's almost gets this false sense of security in isolation that, well, I've been working from home. I really don't want to work at work because I don't need anybody in my business. I don't need anybody telling me what to do. And then the danger with that is that I'm not accountable. And so when things start to get back to normal, we find ourselves resisting the community that we once had because we've adapted.
Yeah, it's interesting because although people have experienced many different levels of isolation, I think that a lot of people have adapted in the same way to isolation. So I wanted to give a definition of isolation for today.
Okay.
And that is that isolation is dealing with life's circumstances apart from the input of others.
That just sounds dangerous, doesn't it? And so here's what I want to do is real quick is want to read to you a Bible story that most of you should probably already know. It's a very famous story. It's called the story of David and Bathsheba. And right away, when it says David and Bathsheba, we're talking about King David. And right away, it's really an unfortunate title because if you've ever been told, God doesn't remember your sin, this tells you that's not true, because God recorded David's sin, and here we are thousands of years later reading it. So God doesn't forget your sin. Now, he does forgive your sin, so that's a good thing to remember. So we're going to pick this up in 2 Samuel chapter 11. And if you have a phone and you want to follow along, if you haven't downloaded our app, go and download our app, and we're going to have these scriptures. It says sermon notes, and you can follow along with this. Okay, so it says, one evening David got up from his bed and walked around the roof of the palace. And from the roof, he saw a woman bathing. And it says the woman was very beautiful. Now, before I go into the context of this, again, let me just remind you, since I talked to you about your app, one of the things that we do as a church is we read through a chapter of the Bible every day, and we are actually reading through this story. So if you get this app, just click on SOAP, and you can follow along with us. Now, if you don't have an app, a Bible, you can also download an app called YouVersion's best Bible app there is out there. Now, David, here's some details. David, we presume, is about 50 years old at this point, somewhere around my age. So he's been king for over 20 years. So he's kind of moving up to where he's thinking about retirement. So it's not some college frat boy looking for chicks, okay? So verse 3, it says, so he sees this beautiful woman, verse 3, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man that he sent said, she's Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Then David sent messengers to get her. So once he finds out who she is, he says, go get her. She comes to him, and he slept with her. Now, she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanness, wink, wink, polite way to say what men don't like to say. And then she went back home, okay?
Okay, so what I want to do is just kind of go over these people again, just to make sure that we get everything
so
clear.
It's like a soap opera. We need to know all the characters here.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
Bathsheba is the daughter of Eliam,
Okay.
or Eliam.
Eliam, yeah.
Her grandfather was one of David's most trusted advisors.
Okay.
Uriah, who was her husband, was one of David's mighty men. He was a man of war, and he helped David become king.
That's right.
And he was one of David's friends.
Yeah.
So here's what happens. They go get her, and they bring her back, and she spends the night. And, I don't think this is a one-time thing. This
Wasn't
is
a one-time
probably
booty
something
call.
that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was that?
It wasn't a one-night booty call.
No, I don't think it was a one-time
Yeah. Okay.
duty call. So anyway, he sends her servants to get her, and they know, they obviously know right away what's going on. And if one servant knows, that there's going to be more servants that are gonna know. So this stuff is probably starting to spread a little bit. So David's having an affair with the granddaughter of one of his advisors and the wife of one of his good friends. So this is a pretty crazy story.
So everything's set in motion. So a little bit while later, she sends a message to David that says, I'm pregnant. And from the text, we find he looks pretty sure that he knows it's his, which means they've been hooking up for at least a month. And how do we know that? Because remember, they hooked up after her monthly uncleanness, right? Her monthly cycle. Probably another month goes by and the cycle doesn't come back. So she's thinking she's pregnant. We also know that her husband hasn't been home during this time. So David does what most men do and try to control the situation. And I say that because of personal experience. In fact, yeah, I know. I have a story that I want to tell, but I'm not excited to tell. I'm actually kind of ashamed of it. But when I was in high school, there was a guy who lived a couple blocks away, and he was a football player. He was a jock, and we were all surfers. And he put a pair of surf racks on his car, and we were like, he's not even a surfer, he's a poser. And so those surf racks got stolen one day, and this judgmental jock assumes that I'm the one that stole them, which I did. And so I start to hear some rumblings that he's going to beat me up because I stole his racks. And so I come up with the plan. I drive all the way to Pensacola to a surf shop that sells these same kind of racks. I buy another set of racks and kind of put them on the car and replace some parts so they look a little bit used. And when the guy wrote the receipt, it said, January 4th, it said 1/4, and I was able, but he wrote last year's year on it. So I was able to put a 2, so it looked like December 4th.
Kind of like what you would do with your report cards.
Yeah, that was another one I decided to not talk about, but thank you very much.
This is awesome, though, because I've never heard this story.
Oh, yeah. And so then when he approached me, I just happened to have a receipt, but he didn't believe me. And all I'm saying is that what happens when you do something wrong, and then as men, I don't know, just men, anybody, you try to control the situation. That's where David is right now. Right. He's trying to control the situation. And so anyway, he comes up with the plan to bring Uriah back from the front lines in hopes that he would sleep with his wife and then think the baby's his. So that's exactly what he does. He calls for Uriah. Uriah comes back from the front lines, go into the palace, says, hey, what's going on? And David's like, hey, man, just want to see how things are going. And Uriah's like, yeah, we're winning and everything. And so they eat and drink a little bit. And then David goes, all right, we'll just send you back tomorrow. Go home, spend the night with your wife, get some R&R. And David thinking that he'll sleep with his wife, think the baby's his. Well, David gets up in the morning and finds that Uriah spent the night at the palace gate with the guards who were assigned to protect David, that he didn't even go home. And he says, hey, why didn't you go home? And Uriah said, I couldn't go sleep with my wife knowing that my buddies are still out in the front lines fighting a battle.
He's a good guy.
He is a very good guy. He's honoring his king. He's honoring his friendships. He's a man of his word. So David comes up with a new plan. Says, okay, hey, hang out one more night, and then we'll send you back tomorrow. So this time he gets him really drunk, hoping that he'll just go home. He doesn't go home. Stays the night again at the palace gate with the other guys that are sworn to protect the king. And so this guy's, he's a better man than David. So now David does the unthinkable. Because why? He's trying to control the situation.
Right.
So he writes a note to Joab, who's the commander of David's armies. And he takes this note and he gives it to Uriah. And he says, when you get back to the front lines, take this note. It's some strategic instructions for Joab and give it to him. Now, here's what the note said. In it, he wrote, put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest. Then withdraw from him so he will be struck down and die.
This is so crazy because it's like the craziest soap opera ever,
Yes.
right? This is, and what's really, really crazy is that Uriah ends up having to deliver his own death sentence.
That's right.
That's just absolutely heartbreaking. And at this point, people know, like everyone's starting
Now
to
Joab
know.
knows.
Joab knows. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
And so, sadly, this is going to do some damage on David's life for sure. And so what we need to know is that David permanently undermined his credibility and moral authority with his adult children.
That's right.
At this point, he completely lost all credibility with his kids. And they knew. They could see everything that was going on.
And David thinks he's controlling the situation, and yet everybody is finding out about it.
Yeah.
So they pull back. Uriah is killed in battle. And so after a time of mourning, Bathsheba goes through a time of mourning, David brings her into the palace and takes her as his wife. And not too long after the wedding, lo and behold, she gives birth to a child. Yeah, the baby was early. Really, David? 4 months early, and he looks pretty healthy. He lays in at 9.8 pounds, right? But people knew. His kids knew. His kids are like, come on, Dad, who are you kidding? We know what happened. You could have had any woman in the kingdom that you wanted. In fact, you already had a bunch of kids with a bunch of different women. But no, you have her husband, who's one of your good friends, you have him killed because you're about to be caught having an affair with her. And everyone else knew about it. And now you're trying to get us to believe this junk about the babies born early. See, David lost something that he could never, ever get back. He lost his credibility. He lost his credibility with people. He lost his credibility with his kids. And what's crazy, or the irony of this, is the outcome that he tried to control then became out of control.
Yeah.
Now, let me make this clear. Moral failure does not make you unusable by God. Because if you're sitting there thinking, well, then I guess I can't be used. No, that's not true. But it can ruin your relationships, it can ruin your credibility, and it can ruin your reputation. So here's what happens after this. Go to the next chapter, verse 1. It says, the Lord sent Nathan to David. Now, the Nathan was a prophet. Now, remember back then, Israel wanted kings. God says, no, you don't want a king. I'll you be your king. And they said, we want a king. He says, okay, I'll give you a king. But he still worked through prophets, okay? So Nathan is a prophet. And so the Lord sent Nathan to David. And when he came to him, he said, there were two men. So he tells him a story. There were two men in a certain town, one rich and the other's poor. So now remember, no one had access to David. Everyone just did what the king said. Okay. It wasn't just because your job depended on it, your life depended on it. When David said, hey, go get me that woman. And you went, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. And the king would go, you know what else isn't a good idea? Talking back to your king, right? So that you just did. You didn't argue with the king. So what did God have to do? Because there's nobody has access to David right now because all his buddies are out. So what does he do? He sends Nathan because nobody had access. He was isolated. And, this happens to us.
Yeah.
All of us, especially those of us who are like me. Maybe you get older, you call your own shots. You're a business owner. You're a boss, maybe even a dad.
You get comfortable because you're experienced.
That's right. You get comfortable. And what happens is you create this air of inaccessibility. And
Yeah.
what I found is that we don't make better decisions when we're inaccessible. We don't make better. In fact, we usually end up making horrible decisions.
Yeah.
So
And so that's what I love about this story, because Nathan he's being a little sneaky. So he comes in and he tells him, I need some advice on this situation.
yeah, I'm just asking for
I'm
a
just
friend.
I'm just asking for a friend. And he tells him this story about a rich man who has lots of sheep and property. And then he talks about the poor man who's like his neighbor who has, doesn't really have much of anything. He's got one sheep. This sheep is the only family sheep. It's the sheep that they feed under the table at dinner time. It's the sheep that snuggles up with you at night,
What's
right?
the sheep's name, Daisy?
The sheep's name was Daisy. So they just had one
Sleeps
sheep.
with him.
Our dog's named Daisy, by the way. So then what happens is that somebody comes to visit the rich man. And when they come, the custom is that you would make dinner for them. So instead of slaughtering one of his own sheep and cooking him dinner, he goes to this poor man's place and he takes their only sheep, Daisy, back and cooks him up and serves her for dinner.
So he's telling David this story.
Oh yeah, and he's asking for a friend.
Yeah. So what he says, what should I do? What should be done about this? And here's David's answer. It says, David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, as surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. And you're like, whoa, pump the brakes, David.
Yeah.
Because this is a little bit harsh, right? Just killed a sheep. He could actually replace him if he wanted to, but you don't kill someone for killing a sheep. But obviously David's angry. But why? Why is he so angry? And who's he angry with? The truth is he's angry with himself because inside he isolated himself and now he's allowed himself to go somewhere morally that he never thought he'd go. Adultery with the wife of one of his good friends, and then to cover it up has him killed. If you ever hear sometimes preachers preaching about some sin that they rail against all the time, or not even preachers, politicians too, and then you find out they're guilty of the same thing. That's what this is. He's angry because it's in him. So he has all this anger. And then Nathan says this very famous line. It's verse 7. It says, then Nathan said to David, you are the man. And if you grew up in church, you might remember the old King James Version, which I think is so poetic. Thou art the man. You know, David says, that man should die. And Nathan looks at him and goes, well, you're the one that should die. That's you. God has sent me here to talk to you about this because nobody has access to you. You could have had any woman in the kingdom you wanted, but instead you chose this one woman, the wife of your trusted friend. And now look what you've done. You've embarrassed yourself. You've ruined your relationship with those around you. You've ruined your relationship with your children. You've made a mess. Why? Why did you do this? And here's David's answer. He says, verse 9, he says, why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his eyes? And then David answered him. David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. So all of this is now exposed. This whole thing that he tried to control, everything is now out in the open. And God forgave him. And there's some other things that happened, but we don't have time to go into it. But our point is this. Even though God forgave him, God did not erase the consequences of his dumb, isolated, nobody tells me what to do, I'm the king decisions. Now, listen, I'm going to speak to the men for just a moment because I'm one of them and I can relate to it. I can't relate to your hair studio, hair salon, but I can relate to this. I'm at the top of this list. Every one of us have the potential to do this stupid kind of thing and pay the price from which we never, ever recover. Because David never recovered from this. Now, God forgave him, but that doesn't stop the consequences. The consequences were there to stay. See, forgiveness is easy, but the consequences are so much tougher. Because here's what happens. That baby that Bathsheba has ends up dying. And David's kids are a mess. Again, I want to encourage you to read the soap because we're going to be reading about this. David's kids are a mess. And a few years after this, one of his adult sons sexually assaults his half-sister. And David does nothing about it. Why? Why wouldn't he do anything about it? How could he? Because that would make him a hypocrite. Who are you to talk to me about sexual assault when you had your best friend killed and you committed adultery with his wife? And so because David does nothing about it, Absalom, who's his favorite son, kills the half-brother that assaulted his sister. And David still does nothing about it. So things go on, it escalates, and eventually there's a civil war that breaks out, and Absalom gathers an army to go against his father, David. Now remember, Bathsheba's grandfather was one of David's trusted advisors. Right. His name was Ahithophel. Okay, Ahithophel.
Ow.
When Absalom wages war against David, Ahithophel, one of his trusted advisors, defects over to Absalom's side with some very confidential information about David's armies. Why would he do that? Because maybe he was still furious with the fact that David had his granddaughter's husband killed. Yeah. So David is forced to leave Jerusalem. Absalom invades the city, and in a show of contempt, he has sex with his father's concubines on the same palace roof that David first saw Bathsheba. And then at the end of this battle, David's favorite son, Absalom, was killed in battle. All because nobody had access to the king. I mean, who was going to tell David no?
Yeah. This is one of the reasons why we were telling this story is because this whole story began with some foreshadowing. It was like one of those things that you see and you're like, oh no.
No, don't go in that room.
Don't do it. Yeah.
Don't do that.
Don't do it. Because when you read the first part of the story, you can almost see that this is going to happen. Yeah. And here's the part that we skipped. The entire narrative starts back here in chapter 11, verse 1. It says, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army.
And he stayed home in the palace. Now, here's why this is important. When it says in the spring, remember, back then, the kings, they didn't wage war. In the wintertime is the wet season over there in the Middle East. Snow, lots of rain, so there's mud. So it's highly expensive to move your troops. So everyone kind of chilled out in the wintertime, and in the spring, that's when you waged war. And so this is the proper time for the kings go off to battle. And first David says, this year I'm not going to go. And when he did that, he isolated himself from this community of men, the men he was most responsible to, people like Joab. He got in trouble because he isolated himself from the only group of men who had access to him. Because, when you go off to war, when men go off to war, their relationship changes. You guys in the military, you know this. There's a camaraderie that happens that when you're at war or in the military that doesn't happen any other way. And so when David decided not to go off to battle, he didn't have that anymore. So he isolated himself,
Right.
and he chose to isolate himself. And when he did that, he chose, basically said, look, I'm not going to do this anymore. And so that was the domino effect. If he had gone off to war, none of this would happen.
Right.
So that was the domino effect that caused everything else to happen. Now, here's what we do is we spend our life most of the time trying to not let the negative domino happen. Like, well, I'm just not going to let this happen. But here's our challenge today, and here's what we're going to talk about, and Darlene's going to talk about in a moment. What if, instead of just trying to keep the first domino from happening, we set ourselves in a position positively by surrounding ourselves with community where people have access to us and have permission to speak into our life? Because let's be honest, when we isolate ourselves, we don't get into trouble by ourselves, do we?
No.
I mean, David, it was a domino effect. He just thought this sin would be his, and it affected everybody else. And see, that's the trap of isolation, okay? Because when you think you can live your life apart from the input of others, that's when you get in trouble. And that's why we say here all the time, God created you for community.
Yeah, one of the most basic things that we learn in the creation story is that man, it wasn't good for man to live alone. And what I love is that language that was used in Genesis is actually used throughout the Bible. The one flesh thing can be a relationship, like those people that are like your core people around you that can stand with you. They're the kind of relationships that you depend on. Like your life actually depends on those kinds of relationships. So I thought it might be really good to just give everybody
a couple minutes. Go ahead.
a brief description of the type of people that you should never do life apart from. So we'll go through these real quickly. Number one is people who challenge you. Those people who kind of cause you to rise up. They empower you to stay on the journey with Jesus, right? Like, I know you have a great soap group, right?
Yeah.
And those are the kind of people that are in
We
your
meet every
your
Tuesday morning
group.
at 7:00 at
Yeah.
local market and have breakfast and read the Bible. So,
And then number two is the people.
if Joab would have been around, he would never let David do that.
Correct.
He would have said, bro, that's not a good idea.
Exactly. And then there's the people who change you. And this is why I really love being in a community at Shoreline, whether it's, Shoreline Men or Sisterhood or Tribe, because we begin to sit in circles. And what that really means is we get to know each other's lives. We hear each other's stories. And then those are the things that begin to change us. They grow us emotionally. They help us to love and to lead other people in a better way. And then the third one is those people who care enough to hold you accountable.
That's right.
And man, when you end up doing life with people that can ask you the hard questions, they're the ones that, because they're vulnerable, you feel like you can be vulnerable. Those are the people that support you, and they serve you better because it serves your future life, the way God actually wanted it to be. So it's not only empowering, but it's really comforting to know when you have those kind of people in your life that they've got your back, right? Yeah. So I thought we could wrap this up with a couple of quick questions today. So we're going to ask these. If it's not good for me to do life alone, then here's the question. Have I placed myself in a God-centered community of relationships beyond Sunday morning? Why or why not? Am I willing to do something about it? And lastly, why not today?
So for more information on how to get involved in community, wherever you are, whether it's online or at Crab Island, go to our boat that says Shoreline Church on it. If you're down at AJ's, go see Whitney or any of the ladies down there, and they can tell you how you can find some more community.
Right.
And let me just ask, are you willing to give people who don't work for you or who don't need anything from you access to you? That's what it's about.
That's great.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for giving us stories like this in the Old Testament that show us roads that we don't want to travel down and give us a way of escape. So, Lord, I thank you for the community that you've given all of us, the opportunity to be in a community so that we don't have to go down those roads and experience the things that David experienced, or maybe what some of us watching right now have experienced. And God, I know that some of us have experienced, and I thank you that you do forgive us, that we have been forgiven for those decisions that we've made and the times that we've isolated ourselves. But today is a new day, and our future is not determined by our past. That today we can choose to be intentional and surround ourselves with people who can speak into our life. We love you and praise you for it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
God bless you guys. We'll see you next week.
What an amazing Sunday. If you're ready to find your own group, visit the Shoreline Church app to see our current SOAP groups. If you need any help or are interested in leading a group of your own, go ahead and let your online host know. Today, your next step might be generosity. Anyone can give this morning. You'll see the ways to give on the screen. While you prepare, we want you to know that because of you, we are able to bring Jesus and His church to the front and center of everyday life with our online, AJ's, and Crab Island locations. So thank you for your generosity in helping to carry out the true mission, people. You are making a difference in the lives of others. And while you're here, let your online host know how we can pray for you today. All you need to do is click that live prayer button on Church Online or comment prayer on Facebook. It's our honor to pray with you today. Don't forget to stay connected all week long on our social media or the app. Have an awesome week.